Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to be going over the GT Power Series 3-piece alloy cranks made by SR, and they were made between 1986 and about 1990. A little bit of their history, and we're going to talk about some of their variants. I bet you learned something new today for sure. First things first, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. It only takes a fraction of a second. It doesn't hurt, I promise, and it helps support the channel. And keep those notifications on so you don't miss any upcoming content. Now let's get back into it. Now I have two videos on this subject. One video is the GT Power Series cranks, the new versions, or reproductions or repops or whatever you want to call them. You can argue about that in the comment section. But I have a video about them versus the SR made cranks, the originals, and the differences. So I'll leave a link to that so you can see that and check that out. You might learn something there as well. Now, I also have another video on how to install the GT Power Series 3-piece cranks made by SR from 1986 to 1990. I'll leave a link to that so you can see how to do that if you're not familiar with it. Well, we need to go back to 1986, where GT was building both freestyle and racing bikes in a variety of build levels. And as riders pushed the envelope of tricks, including Dr. Air Josh White with his massive ramp air, some of the drivetrain parts would start to show their weaknesses, specifically the cranks. And then these arms would have a tendency to twist under torsion. And this would put the cranks out of alignment so they wouldn't be 180 degrees apart from each other. And you'd be surprised how often this would occur. A GT needed something stronger and more durable, especially for their team and factory-sponsored riders. SR came to the rescue with the iconic set of forged alloy GT cranks. GT Power Series cranks were born. Initially, these cranks were only available for the team models starting in 1987. With the Pro Freestyle Tour team model, the Pro Series team model, the Dyno Pro Comp team model, and of course the Robinson Racing team models. None of the 1986 GT or Dynos were equipped with the Power Series 3-piece cranks from the factory. But some of you are going to argue that you have 1986 stamped and dated crank arms. Just be clear, that's a manufacturing date, meaning they were in production in 1986, but not equipped on production bikes until 1987 model year. Just like car manufacturers, GT built 1987 models in 1986. If your bike was a team model, you received the GT Power Series 3-piece alloy cranks. If you had a regular Pro Freestyle Tour or Dyno Pro Comp, you were definitely equipped with a one-piece chromoly crank, or OPC for short. So what makes these so special? For starters, the forged 7050 aluminum is a high-strength, heat-treatable aluminum alloy commonly used in aerospace applications. The 7050 aluminum offers a high tensile and yield strength, making it suitable for structural application. It's less likely to crack under stress as well. The aluminum is lightweight and is a double pinch bolt design and a retained spindle bolt to help keep the arms in place, making this a trouble-free design. And couple this with sealed ball bearings, these cranks are virtually a maintenance-free system. Let's not forget the heat-treated 4130 chromoly spindle for added strength. And oh, one last thing. They just look badass. Now, GT also offered these separately from 1987 through about 1991. They retailed for $130 to $150 back in 1987. And adjusted for inflation, that would cost you about $400 to $420 in today's world. That's just crazy. And it's part of the reason why you didn't see many T models back in the day. They were just very expensive. Eventually, the prices settled in about $120 for the complete set. Now, for comparison, one-piece cranks with cage ball bearings would sell for about $14. So let that sink in. GT used two different bottom bracket sets back in the day. The standard Tioga or Tange style setup for the GT, and of course the ultralight cups. Both used the 6005 RS sealed ball bearings. Now, I believe the ultralight cups were mainly used for racing bikes, such as the Pro Series team model or the Robinson Racing team model. They would sometimes be found in the Power Series crank sets when you purchased them out of the box. Now, they were nylon or plastic cups, not chrome-plated steel. The freestyle bikes, such as the Pro Comp team and the Pro Freestyle Tour team, would always have the chrome-plated steel cups. So let me know in the comment section what your real original team models had back in the day. So let's talk about the specifics of the bearings. They were 1.850-inch OD, or 47 millimeter for our metric friends, and 1.023 ID or 26 millimeter by 0.472 inch thick or 12 millimeter. The bearings are marked 6005 RS, meaning they are a series 6005 radial shield. However, the dimensions for these bearings are 47 millimeter OD by 25 millimeter ID by 12 millimeter thick. Now the issue is the bearing ID is smaller by 1 millimeter or 40 thousandths of an inch. Now on the GT Power Series cranks, SR used modified bearings with a 26 millimeter ID. Essentially, they were opened up. So if you buy replacement bearings online, they will not work. But have no fear, A-Trains has a solution for you. You can simply get replacement bearings from Porkchop BMX. You can use Tioga seal bearing American bottom bracket, part number BB220SB, or the Tange seal bearings, again, the same part number, BB220SB. Now, they're available from Porkchop. They're not exactly cheap, but you get all the parts, the cups, the bearings, all the parts that go with it. And it's not GT stuff, but it'll get you through. Now, as much as we all love these cranks, and we love the way they look, and we want them on our bikes, were they impossible to destroy or damage? No. Now, what would go wrong, usually on them, were one of two things. If the pinch bolts were not tight enough, the aluminum square bore would round out, and the chromoly spindle would turn inside the arm. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if the pinch bolts were over-tightened, it would stress the rear area of the arm, and if you weighed 170 to 190 pounds, say, and came down hard enough on those pedals, you could crack the area of material between the pinch bolts on these arms. Now you'll notice on the newer versions of these cranks, the modern versions, called repop, this area has more material, and the pinch bolt where the Allen cap head screws are much smaller, and that adds strength to that area. There are 4 different sizes of these GT Power Series crank arms. Here's a fun fact which many people do not know, so if you learn something new here, let me know in the comment section. There's only one forged arm for all 4 sizes, 150 millimeter, 170 millimeter, 175 millimeter, and of course 180 millimeter. Now let's focus on the 170 through 180 millimeter first. They were the exact same arm, and SR simply drilled and tapped the pedal spindle holes in a different location, depending on the length that was desired. 170 millimeter would put the spindle closest to the crank spindle, and 180 millimeter would put the pedal spindle furthest away from the crank spindle. 175 millimeter was most common and was found on the freestyle bikes from 1987 to about 1990. 150 millimeter were arms that were modified and ground down by SR, and then they were reshaped. These were mainly used on the GT Ricochet all-terrain bike. Sometimes people would put them on their 16-inch pit bikes or junior bikes. And now for the variants. There are also white painted GT Power Series cranks. These are real. They are not refinished. They came on certain mountain bikes and all-terrain bikes, such as the 1988 GT Avalanche. They were not used on production freestyle and racing bikes from GT, but factory riders would swap them out and personalize their rides. Now for a special service announcement. Please do not attempt to remove the factory drive pin screw in the back of the right or the drive crank arm. This is thread locked from the factory. In order to remove it, you need to break the bond on the thread locker using heat. There is no reason to remove this pin screw from the arm. Stop doing it. I have repaired dozens of these arms for people over the years. Some really involved, and others required some complex ingenuity. I also make replacement pin screws and offer them up on the BMX Museum. I'll leave a link in the description, but if that's not working for some reason or I'm out of stock, just hit me up and send me a PM, ATrains89, on the museum. And that about wraps it up. GT started to move away from this 3-piece alloy crank design in 1989, and production stopped in about the end of 1989. Now, the GT Pro Series team model was optioned with a choice of SR-style alloy cranks or the new profile-style GT Power Series cranks. The 1990 lineup included the Pro Freestyle Tour team model, the Dyno Slammer team model, Pro Comp team model, Aggressor team model, and of course Robinson Racing. Pretty much all the team models continued to use the SR-made alloy cranks, and GT transitioned to the profile-style Power Series cranks in 1991, thus ending the era of the most iconic and awesome-looking 3-piece cranks ever made. These are my rules. I make them up. Now, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. and get back to those builds. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, tomorrow is not guaranteed.